In this video, you will learn all things steady state exercise, what it is, how to do it, and why it can be your superpower. Let's get into it. My name is Dr. David Duizer. I'm a naturopathic doctor focused on optimizing human physiology. Steady state exercise is a favorite type of exercise for me. I've been practicing it for many years, dating back to high school cross-country running, those long days in the Nova Scotia wilderness, trekking through the trails, focusing on steady state cardio. I just love it. Clinically, I think it's incredibly valuable, which is why I wanted to do this video. Today we'll go through how I like to do it, how I like to encourage my patients to do it, what things to take into consideration when you're deciding what type, what duration, how intense it should be, anything you may need to know about steady state. Let's try to cover that today. So first off, what is steady state exercise? Well, it's really in the name. It means keeping the pace consistent for a long period of time. Steady state exercise. So it's most people know it as long distance running, but it doesn't need to be long distance running. You could also call long distance walking steady state exercise. The way I see it clinically is any movement that's consistent for a duration of time that feels like a workout. For some people, that could be 10 minutes of walking. It could be a very small amount. For others, it could be 10K jogging in what we call zone 2. We call that steady state training. Same pace, entire time within zone 2. So you get the gist. It's just moving your body at the very same pace for a very long time. But how else could it be done? It doesn't need to be walking or running. It could be any movement that you may want to do for exercise. Swimming, biking, elliptical, stair climber, rower, any movement that you can do consistently for a long period of time, we call that steady state. So why is it so important? Why is it so healthy to participate in steady state exercise? It is fascinating. Not only does it help a person become fitter, but it also helps a person feel better. So how does it do these two things? Become fitter and feel better. Well, when I'm describing steady state exercise to my patients, I often talk about data that we acquire during our physiology assessments here. We use a Pinoe metabolism device. So we're assessing metabolism in the office using this device. And I'll show you kind of what the app looks like. The app looks like this, Pinoe. And it's a device that goes on a person's face while they're exercising to measure the carbon dioxide exhaled. That's how you actually measure metabolism. So in our clinic here, we do it at rest to get a resting metabolic rate, but we also do it during a ramp test. A ramp test is an assessment where we start a patient at their baseline heart rate, and we take them up all the way up to their max output, either on the bike or the treadmill. And when we do this, we can assess the carbon dioxide they're exhaling and other gases. This tells us when they're burning fats versus when they're burning carbs. It tells us the frequency of their breathing, how fast they're breathing, the volume they can pull in, and how quickly they can consume oxygen for energy when the demand rises up. So when times are easy, we see people burning fat. That's what happens. That's human physiology during exercise. Times are easy, we burn fat. Until the work becomes a little too difficult, then we start to tap into those glycogen stores, the stored carbohydrate. Those will ramp up, fat will ramp down. They enter into what's called a crossover point, where the carbs are a little higher than the fat for burning, for fuel. And then we entered into this phase where it's all carbohydrate, all stored glycogen burning, and fat burning is incredibly low. That's what happens during a ramp test. So when a person is burning fat exclusively, we call that an aerobic zone. Burning both fuel sources is still aerobic, but when it's exclusively fat, that's definitely aerobic. So that means that the mitochondria are consuming free fatty acid for fuel. In combination with oxygen, they're outputting ATP through something called beta oxidation. That's what gives us energy when times are easy. We see that on the initial stages of an exercise test. When a person transitions into a carbohydrate burning too quickly, we call that poor tank. So the tank, picture this, it's the tank that holds the fuel. They may be able to push a ton of watts or run super fast. That would say the engine is healthy. But if they're transitioning all the way into carbohydrates way too early, that means that the tank is too small. So their ability to actually make energy is limited because they're tapping into their stored carbohydrate too soon. So this is what happens when you see athletes get recommended to train longer and slower. They're being suggested to actually train their tank. Even though they might have a strong engine, they might need to build up that aerobic capacity so they can burn fat longer into their training session. Now I'd like to pull up an example on a metabolism assessment where you can see what exactly this looks like. So in 5 seconds here, I will have this example pulled up and I'll share my screen. Let's have a look at an actual bike test that is done by me. Here we go. I will show you my data. So let's make a move here. This is what data looks like when it's being taken in by the device. So let me transition to this little slide here. I'll smooth out the data so you can see it. And I'll go to the fats versus carb burning. Here we are. You see this yellow down here? That's burning fat. You see the purple? That's burning carbohydrate. Now you can see here times are really easy. Times are easy. We're on a bike and we're only moving 15 watts, 30 watts, 45 watts, 60 watts. Fats and carbs are both being burned at the same time. Then when we cross over 90 watts, you can see the carbs start to go nice and high and the fat starts to go down. If we were to able to become fitter in this area here, we could shift this entire graph to the right and burn fat longer into this session, thereby expanding the tank and giving us more resource so that at the end of the event, we're not so exhausted. Let's have a look at the calorie burn here so we can assess this person's ability to burn calorie. This person is me, by the way. So we're looking at a heart rate of 100 on the bike. They're burning 7.5 calories per minute. That's about when they started to cross over. At the top end, burning 15 calories a minute. So you can see that there. Heart rate of 100, pushing 90 watts, crossover point, burning 7.5 calories per minute. And it's an equal mix of carbs and fat. Anything more than that, it's stored carbohydrate burning. So that's very interesting to me because if they're getting tired when they cross over that point, that's an issue, right? Because we want to be able to stay in a fat burning mode longer so that we can participate more intensely in our exercise and consume more oxygen for fuel using free fatty acid. Okay, kind of cool. So that's what we're doing here. So what we're able to outline is that if we're trying to get fitter, we should be focused on building up that tank in addition to the engine. Yes, we need to be strong. We need to be able to express our strength when times are tough. But the easiest way to accomplish that is to first have a nice aerobic base. So steady state cardio helps us build that aerobic base. What is the aerobic base? The aerobic base is the ability for the mitochondria to actually produce energy when times are what we call easy for that person, from free fatty acid. And so we know one very simple thing. Steady state cardio improves mitochondrial capacity and function. So we can upregulate the enzymes required to actually make energy from fat if we train at those steady states. It's well documented that steady state cardio helps with this. So if we're a type of person who's really tired all the time, maybe finds, every single daily chore, every single daily activity exhausting, maybe we do need to build that aerobic base so that easy work feels easy. We really, really, really want easy work to feel easy, so that hard work, when we actually need to do it, doesn't cause us to crash. So there's two components to that. You have to have adequate muscle mass, which is why in this clinic we actually measure muscle mass and we make sure people have enough. But also we need the mitochondria, these little organelles that are inside our cells. We need them to make energy from fat. That requires aerobic training. So strength training and high intensity intervals can build the mitochondrial density. We get more muscle mass, we get more mitochondria per cell of muscle, yes. But then we need to upregulate their function. We can send them to the moon if we train steady state long slow cardio every single day. What does Health Canada say? Health Canada says train moderate intensity exercise 150 minutes per week. Why do they say that? It's heart healthy, it's lung healthy, it's muscle healthy, but also it makes people feel good. It makes them feel good because they have more energy because their mitochondrial function is increased. So I just love it. So steady state cardio has more benefits than just increased mitochondrial function, or maybe the benefits that I'm about to describe are because of the increased mitochondrial function. There may be other factors, but hear me out. We know that steady state cardio reduces anxiety. Steady state cardio improves brain function. Steady state cardio improves daily energy, perceived energy. So reducing stress, improving energy, and improving brain function like focus, cognition. Why does it do this? Well, we can when we do steady state cardio, we're getting the heart rate up a little bit, right? Like it's going up a little bit. That means that we're able to increase our cardiac output. Cardiac output is oxygen, is blood volume times heart rate. So we get the heart rate up. All of a sudden our output is up. Right? So we got this turnover happening. We're getting more blood flow to our tissues. Blood flow to the tissues, that's what's sending the oxygen to the tissues to actually be consumed for fuel. And so if we're able to spend some time every day actually getting our heart rate up, not in a way that will cause exhaustion, but in a way that will actually give us some value for the end organ tissues. Let's get some oxygen to the tissues. Then those tissues will function better. It's well known that cardiovascular training reduces the risk of all-cause mortality, dementia, cancer, cardiovascular disease. Let's face it. And if it's strenuous enough, it can reduce the risk of bone fractures because we're training the actual bone tissue by putting some force through it. So it does many, many good things. Now, it might actually reduce perceived stress because of its impact on cortisol, an adrenal hormone involved in the stress response. It might actually improve brain function because of this blood flow aspect, right? Pushing blood into the brain. It might improve well-being overall because it gets us moving, it gets us more flexible, it gets some blood flowing to the joints. It also challenges the joints a little bit depending on the type of movement you're doing. It's challenging the joints, which we know are really, really good for them. So challenging them too much is not good, but challenging them a little bit, extremely good for them. Reduces the risk of many, many joint issues, actually exercising. So it's funny about that. So lots and lots of benefits to steady state cardio. Let's talk about what it is in the literature exactly what it is. Let's pull up another window here, have a peek at this one. Steady state cardio is training for a period of time at a very consistent pace. Now, what is the pace? What I've done here is a calculation that you can use. What I've done is 60 to 70% of max heart rate. So take this formula, please. 220 minus your age times decimal 6 gives the bottom end heart rate. 220 minus your age times decimal 7 gives the top end heart rate. This is 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. This is a really great place to train when you're trying to do steady state cardio. For many of you, this won't feel like much. For me, this feels like easy work. Easy work. Why is that important? It's important, number one, because it actually works for all the things I just described. And it's important, number two, because it doesn't make a person hungry or tired. It doesn't. And so we get all the benefits with not many risks. Okay, so for a person who's 40 years old, it's training between a heart rate of 108 and 126 steady state cardio. Now, if you do a physiology assessment like the one we do in our practice here, we get to know exactly what zones 1, 2, and 3 are. So the aerobic zones, we're able to know them because we collect the data and analyze it. But if you don't have that, no worries. 60 to 70% of max heart rate. Fill in your age in the formula and figure it out. And you will know how to train steady state cardio. You can also use rate of perceived exertion. Let's go through rate of perceived exertion. I'd like to share with you how I talk to my patients about this. So rate of perceived exertion is RPE. We're thinking about zones 1 through 3. Okay, zone 1 is just really easy work, like too easy. Okay, zone 1 is too easy. Zone 2 is very simple. Zone 2 is very simple. Zone 2, you can say a paragraph. So you're having a conversation, right? Zone 2, you can say a full paragraph. You can string together 3 sentences. But you can't give a speech because you have to focus on the movement and you have to focus sometimes on the breath. Zone 3, I like to say you can say 1 to 2 sentences. Then you have to breathe. Then you have to get back to the breath in zone 3. Okay, so these are 2 really good zones to focus on. If you can't say 1 or 2 sentences, the intensity is too high. If you can say a speech, string together 2 or 3 paragraphs, the intensity is too low for you. And so this makes it really easy to try to figure out what the pace should be for you. I like to use this sometimes. Let me share with you what this looks like for a lot of my patients. For a lot of my patients, this looks like walking outside and finding some hills. It's that simple. I really think steady state cardio is any movement is good movement. That's it. For a lot of my patients, it looks like Wednesday morning swims. Getting in the pool and not stopping moving until you're done in the pool. Perfect. For some people, it looks like biking to work every day. Not too intense that you break a sweat before work, but not too easy that it doesn't feel like anything for the legs. I hope I'm getting the point across. What does this look like for me? Okay, I'm very fortunate in that I have a little setup in my home where I can do this. I have 4 things. I have a treadmill, very inexpensive one, elliptical, very old one, a bike from Craigslist, and a rower from Craigslist. I have these 4 things. But here's the thing, I get bored super easily. Super easily. And I want to do 45 minutes of this every day. So what am I going to do? So I'll do 15 to 20 minutes here. 3.3 miles per hour at 7% incline. On my elliptical, I'll do 15 minutes at level 13. It only goes up to 16. Level 13 is exactly where my heart rate should be for this. My bike just has a dial. So I'll do 10 to 15 minutes on the bike. Spin the dial until the heart rate above 108. These are my principles. Beats per minute. Sometimes I'll choose the rower instead of the bike, and I'll do 10 to 15 minutes on the row, steady pace. I have to really go slow because my heart rate on the rower goes up quicker than on everything else. See how simple this is? So I get the treadmill every single day. Start with that. That's where I drink the coffee. Right? Get it going. Then choose between these 3, elliptical, bike, and rower. And fit the whole thing to 45 minutes. Keep it simple. That's how I like to start my day. Because it's not too intense, it's a really great time to do some extra learning. You can focus on things. You can watch really good teachers and actually take it in. because you got lots of blood flow going to the brain. You're drinking a coffee. You're doing your morning, having your morning beverage, whatever that is, and you're learning. Bet you can do whatever you want. You can hang out with anybody doing this, because remember, you can say a whole paragraph. Very simple. So this is what it looks like for me. Steady state cardio every morning, first thing, 45 minutes. Not too long on any one piece of equipment, so that I don't get too bored. Really, really, really simple. Does this make a person an elite athlete? No. Elite athletes need to train for speed. They need to train for muscle. They need to train for agility, and they need to train for power. But do they use this? They absolutely use this. They might not use it 7 days a week, but they're doing 2 days a week, for sure. Minimum effective dose. Come on. As a regular human being, it's a suitable thing to do every single day. Now, I completely, wholeheartedly agree with our government's recommendation of doing 30 minutes 5 days a week, or 2.5 hours divided in whatever way you like, because it's super healthy and so helpful for so many things, as I've described. So when I write plans for people here, it may look like exactly that, exactly what I just wrote there, but it may look like something different. It may look like leave your house for 10 minutes, walk, turn around, walk home. Try to do that every day. Try to do it after lunch. Try to do it after dinner. Make it a routine. Make it a habit. Really, really healthy thing to do. So how should we all do it? We should all do it in whatever way is easiest for us so that we can be consistent. We should do it in a way that helps us feel good. If you do something and it doesn't feel good, it's not the right thing. We should do it in a way that we're making sure we're preventing hunger, fatigue, and soreness. This is not for those. Other types of exercise will be great for those. Not this. We're doing this for optimal wellness, brain health, heart health, cellular health, and feeling great. Blood flow to the brain and blood flow to the muscles, and mobility in the joints. Really, really important thing to note. It might be the single most healthy thing a person can do for themselves, that's quite dramatic, but absolutely true. And notice I said might, because it might actually be. We like to individualize care here. And so if a person has adequate muscle mass, they're training high intensities, they're training strength, and they're missing out on this, it is the single most important thing that they can do. So I have a bit of an obsession with steady state cardio because I assess VO2 max in the practice. VO2 max is the max amount of oxygen a person can consume during exercise, measured in milliliters of oxygen per minute time divided by body weight. Steady state improves VO2 max. It does it through a few different mechanisms. Let's talk about the mechanisms. So how can steady state cardio improve VO2 max? Well, it can do a few things. Steady state cardio is super interesting in that it can help with these things. So we talked about milliliters of oxygen per minute per kg of body weight. Well, let's talk about the kgs. Steady state causes fat burning. Remember? We started with this. During steady state cardio, we're burning exclusively fat. Now, you saw from my example, it's not a lot of calories. It's not a ton. But it's also not nothing. So, in conjunction with a deficit diet and other holistic weight loss considerations that we could take into account, it helps with weight loss. Say, for example, a person like me has a resting rate of 2,200 calories. That's my RMR, plus my activities of daily living of about 500, plus my steady state. Well, what's 7 times 60 minutes? 400 over 400 calories. Over 400 cal for 60 minutes. Okay? Pretty cool. So if we're to create a deficit, we'd be eating in a meal plan. Eat in a meal plan less than this for fat burning. Okay, so if this is all the exercise I do in a day, I'm just being very conservative here, and I'm saying reduce this to 300, 350, add up these numbers, and subtract some calories to get a deficit. Very, very simple. Ooh. Now what else happens with this? We had milliliters of oxygen. Steady state is good for lung health because we're having to focus on the breath. We're having to pull it in. And we can actually take time to train the muscles of respiration while we do this. Right? So you can focus on breathing deep. We don't breathe fast during this, but we can breathe deep. And then we have the mitochondrial function. Mitochondria. With more organelles, we can consume fat quicker at easy work. Okay? So this per minute idea, milliliters of oxygen per minute, well, if we're increasing our mitochondrial capacity and function, then when the demands rise, they can rise with that demand and they can do their thing. And so all of a sudden, we've worked on the muscles of respiration, we've increased the mitochondrial capacity, and we're a little bit leaner because we've been doing this for a while and eating in a deficit. All of a sudden, VO2 max skyrockets, which is the most important metric in all of medicine. VO2 max, more important than cholesterol, blood sugar, and blood pressure for predicting lifespan and health span, feeling good while we age. VO2 max, essential. Steady state improves that. That's where I'd like to leave this. We started with what is it? Then we went to why is it important? What do I do? How can I help patients achieve this? How can we measure it? We can measure fatty acid oxidation or fat burning during easy work, and we can measure VO2 max. And then finally, how can we use it to improve VO2 max? Here's the one thing we need to know. Minimum effective dose twice a week to have a meaningful response. More is better. Too much of the same thing could be detrimental to calorie burn, and the benefits may not be sustained if we do the same thing every single day. Not necessarily sustained, but the benefits may not continue to be ever present if we do the same thing every day. If I only do the treadmill every single day, then what's going to happen is that I'm going to be very conditioned at that very single movement of moving on the treadmill. And we don't want that. You want that if that's your sport. If walking uphill is your sport, you want to be the most efficient person ever and burn 0 calories while you do that. But for regular humans, you don't want to be the most efficient person at any one thing except your occupation or the movements you make during your occupational work, during your work. So we want to switch it up, try different things. The best way to switch it up is to mix things that are simply lower body with things that are full body. My rowing and my elliptical are full body. My walking uphill is full body, but it's mostly legs, and my bike is mostly legs. So we've got a mix in there, right, of engaging the upper body in combination with things that are just lower body. Okay, so consider that. Swimming, rowing, elliptical, walking, biking, stair climber, they're all good. They're all good. Consider mixing them up. Mix and match, and you'll get the benefits of everything. Thank you for watching. My name is Dr. David Duizer. I'm a naturopathic doctor focused on optimizing human performance. We have a chronic disease practice and an optimal medicine practice here in Vancouver, British Columbia. We measure metabolism, both resting and during exercise. We measure muscle mass. We make meal plans and exercise plans that are individualized to those metabolisms. We prescribe supplements and medications We run conventional tests and functional tests. We do it all. And we just really love helping people. It's our favorite thing to do. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing and liking and sharing and teaching everyone you know about the benefits of walking slow. Thanks for watching.